Guys, welcome back to the Conquerors crew. I have an awesome guest today. Very experienced, educated, got lots to share today. This is going to be a really cool show. And I always have to start out and lay our groundwork of our three pillars real quick. For those of you that watch the show, maybe you need a reminder. And for those of you that are new, we just like to let you know. And so we have three pillars. The first one is hope. And hope for us stands for helping other people excel. And the reason we do it on Wednesday is because it's humpity hump day. And are you having a good week? Are you having a bad week? Maybe you show up and you need a little more hope in this week. And maybe somebody has a little bit to give. And so that's just part of being in the crew. The other one is grit. Number two is grit. And the G stands for grace. And for us, grace is, well, it's a lot easier to give grace to other people and kind of give them a second chance or a second pass. But I'm talking about the grace like, don't be so hard on yourself, grace, right? And then the R is for resiliency. And a lot of people think, oh, it's learned and I can't ever do it or whatever. And I had cancer 3 times. And it's like, I could have never done what you've done. Well, you don't start out running an Ironman either, do you? You build up to it. And resiliency is like that. Everybody's got some skills and some talents, and you work up to it. And so I think that it can be learned as well. The next one is integrity. And integrity, a little bit like grace. Pretty easy to call somebody else out going, hey, you're the one breaking the rules. But you're up all night, something's on your mind, you're looking at yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning. Are you being honest with yourself? That's the kind of integrity that I'm talking about. And then T is teachable, right? It's just, hey, for our entire lives, I believe that we're constantly evolving. We always should remain teachable. I know that you were a dean of a school, and so you know about some teaching. And, it just seems like whenever you get a little cocky, you get knocked off your high horse. And the last one, there's really no definition of that one. It is no quit. So hope, grit, and no quit. Those are our three pillars. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the show, Kelly Salmons. Is it Salmons with an S? Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Salmons. And gosh, you have a load of credentials. You're in the military. You've been a dean. You've written a book. You're a coach. Golly, tell us, just let's ease into this. How's your week going? How you doing?
The week's going great. Thanks. I'm enjoying it. And like you said, it's Wednesday, but it's a good Wednesday.
Good.
And, been really busy this week, taking care of, I do some real estate investing and then obviously the empty nest stuff that we'll talk about today, and working on growing that community. Taking care of, I have one kid in China and trying to take care of her stuff with, like her cell phone and all the stuff and making sure she's got the money to buy food. She's there for school, and the other one is in Alabama and working hard. And so, I'm very lucky and thankful that I've got 2 great kids. My husband's amazing. We've been together for 30 years. And so, it's a Wednesday. It's a good day.
Oh man, this sounds awesome. I love it. I love it. So, I'm from the deep South, Louisiana. Please forgive me. It won't be 20 questions, but tell us originally where you're from, where you grew up, a little bit of that. Paint a little picture for us, because if there's people on X, maybe they're just on the audio. They don't have the video.
Yeah. Sure. So I grew up in Connecticut. I'd moved a bunch of times before that, but grew up in Connecticut and ended up going to the Naval Academy for school, for college. And after that, I did, that was in Annapolis, Maryland. And then I was active for about 6 years and was stationed in Chesapeake, Virginia, or Norfolk,
Okay.
Virginia, and
Yep.
Charleston, actually Goose Creek, South Carolina. I was on an ammunition ship, and then I was doing weather and meteorological forecasting for the Navy.
Cool.
From there, I got exposed to all kinds of computer stuff. So I did a bunch of things, worked as a computer consultant when I got out of the Navy, and was a network administrator. Um,
Wow.
Moved into coaching swimming. I was a swimmer, coaching
Okay.
swimming and working as a trainer as my husband was getting out of the military. And
Okay.
so we kind of, I wanted to be able to move around and do that. Started our family, and then had a fitness center that we built from the dirt floor up with my sister and my family. So we did that for a while. Um, and then I ended up going, working out of school and helping. My girls were at school, and I was volunteering and had all of my science and engineering experience, both from education and just the different things that I'd done, like tech and stuff. So principal one day came to me and said, "Hey, I've got a position. I could actually pay you for what you're doing. Do you want to come teach and let me pay you instead of you just volunteering your time?" So I was like, okay, why not? And so I started teaching, and so taught for about 8, 9 years. Also ended up as a academic dean my last year.
Wow.
Um, and there was some space in between that when we uh, ended up in Tennessee, and I was working with
Okay.
a real estate investor while my kids were in high school and whatever, and that worked really well. So I could be mom chauffeur, and we were
Yeah.
learning a new city and everything. And
Yeah.
so I got into real estate investing there and
Cool.
helped him with his back office and all the different things, which was a huge learning curve and great experience for me.
Cool.
And moved back down to Naples, Florida, as the kids were going off to college. The husband was traveling all the time for work, and I said, my friend, like within an hour of being here, "Hey, we have a STEM tech position, come teach for us." And so within an hour of being here, I had an interview scheduled to go back into teaching. So I did that for a couple more, for a few more years, and then everybody was out of the house, and that's kind of when I ended up in this empty nest situation, and
Okay.
just really was like completely like smacked in the head with it, and so surprised how much it like impacted me, and
Right.
how hard it was for me, and how lost and stuck and isolated I felt.
Yeah.
um, and
Okay.
and so the last few years have been working through that, and then growing from there into, hey, wait a minute, I couldn't find what I needed, but there needs to be a community. And so my passion now is really working with women going through this
Cool.
transition, and developing this community so that they have a place, because your friends don't always get it. They're in different places.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's kind of,
So
there's
true.
my, there you
Yeah.
go, my long short story, short long story, whatever it was.
That is amazing. I have several questions. Um,
Absolutely.
but God, that was awesome. You are just a go-getter, and I can tell that you are just motivated and go after what you want. And I can see the empty nester thing. It happened to me. It happened to me a couple of years ago, so I can identify with what you're talking about. I want to ask you just a little bit about the Naval Academy. And how was that? And like how is it being with all these men on a ship? I mean, is that what it was like? And do you get seasick?
Thankfully, no, I don't get seasick. I love
Oh, good
being at
for you.
sea. Like the best thing could be like, hey, let's go take a cruise, and I don't have to work. Like I can just sit and stare at the horizon and just watch the water
Right.
and look at the stars, and like that's fabulous. That put me on a boat. I'm really happy. I love being around the water. But
Wow.
no, I woke up in seventh grade and said, I want to go to the Naval Academy. And at that point, it's back in the 80s, late
Yeah.
80s, when I ended up starting. And, you know, we were 10%. Women were only 10% of the
Right.
class or of the academy.
Yep.
But as I was like preparing for it, it's actually one of the things I talk a lot about and kind of
Okay.
what my book is about,
Yeah.
or my story there. But remembering all of the things that I did to get into the academy,
Okay.
I remember getting the course catalog and old school had to read it and highlight and find all the things and tab all the corners and learn everything about it. I wanted to be in this math class so that I had seen calculus before I got there, and
Right. Right.
working with my I called a meeting because I didn't get recommended for the right class so that I could be on track to be in the class that I needed before I graduated high school. Called a
Okay.
meeting and got the chairman of the math department to agree to let me take the higher level class, and
Wow.
would exercise. And I was a swimmer,
Okay.
but I would run. Running was not really my thing. I was more like a fish out of water.
Okay.
And so I would go running in the mornings when I didn't have swim practice, and I would run before practice in the afternoons, like around the field at the pool, and do all kinds of pull ups and push ups and everything to be totally prepared for, the academy when I got there, because I didn't want to appear weak and I was an
Yeah.
asthmatic. And so
Yep.
I had to do like extra waivers for medical stuff. And you
Wow.
know, I did all of those things just to get in, aside from the,
Right.
thousands of like bubbles that you had to fill in and,
Yeah.
cut the grass or do something you're not supposed to do, silly, all the psych tests that you take as you're filling in the bubbles. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved, loved, loved the academy.
That is awesome.
I didn't have any issues. Like people were like, "Oh, did you have problems? Did you have issues?" No, but I think also I was there because truly wanted to be there.
Yep.
Like, don't get in my way. I could do more pull-ups than most of the other, like the guys in my platoon.
Right.
So like when they saw that, they were like, "Oh, okay. I guess she really wants to be there."
Right.
And I just kept working towards what I wanted.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I loved it. And I ended up going surface warfare.
Okay.
So because I
Okay.
thought, well, that's the backbone of the Navy. Like I need to understand what it's like to be on a ship to understand the Navy.
Okay.
And I ended up on an ammunition ship, the ones that go boom like for many miles if they blow up. But
Whoa.
I
Whoa.
was on an ammunition ship, and then once I got all my certifications, qualifications that said, hey, look, I understand surface warfare.
Yeah.
I shifted for one of my next tours into the oceanography community, which was what my degree was
Okay.
in. And so I was doing oceanographic and
Yeah.
hurricane forecasting, tomahawk forecasting, all kinds of fun, like forecasting for things.
Wow.
And then also we got to play with all the computers,
Okay.
because we were like
Okay.
a test center. So it was really cool, all the
Cool.
things that I got to learn and
Yeah.
experience, and
Yeah.
did, Mediterranean deployments, and, uh,
Wow.
you know, got to go show, go down to like Curacao for an event. And,
Oh,
that was
wicked.
really, really tough duty. We had to go hang out at a resort when we weren't on duty. And, there were some really, really great opportunities when we were there, or when I was there and on my
Yeah.
ship. And, I felt very, very fortunate. So.
That's cool. That's cool. So, it sounds like, you didn't have an issue with like harassment, and most of the guys were respectful, and it was like you were just kind of, if you will, kind of one of the guys. It kind of seems like, you know,
Yeah, I
and I
had
don't mean
friends
that in
that
a
had
rude
some
way.
issues, but I was
Yeah.
very fortunate. I didn't have any issues. 25 years later at a reunion, a friend of mine was like, "You used to intimidate. You were so intimidating." Like, and I think I was, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, I had no idea. I was like, "Oh well, I okay, cool." He's like, "No, you were a badass." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. I didn't know that. Like I was just me. Like I was just doing my thing."
Right.
But that really was that was really good for me to hear someone say that to me, especially, so 25 years later, and
Wow.
and maybe not feeling like that anymore and having a lot of other
Yeah.
things going on in life. And that was
Yeah.
really important. It was a good
You know, a
message to
strong,
hear.
a strong, intelligent, know what they want female is scary to a lot of men. It's scary to a lot of people, and especially men, like beta males, right? They don't do well with that. And then alpha males, well, you might be kind of competing with them. So, but hey, you know what? You've got the personality where you're not going to get involved with that rubbish. You're doing you. Yeah,
That's exactly right. There's room
yeah.
for all of us to do what we need to do.
That's it.
And I think it
That's
was
it.
just like, oh, okay, great, cool. Oh, okay, you didn't want to do that. Okay, okay, I'll go over here and do this. Like it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just
That's
kind of water and away it went, and I just didn't. I guess I
yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
I just did my thing. So
Yeah, yeah. Didn't harbor the grudges, just let it roll. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, can you my brother's in the army. He's been in 25 years or so. Can you just explain a little bit to people that may not understand what surface warfare is?
sure. Surface warfare is like the ships of the Navy. So if you're on a ship, that's considered like the field or that area is surface warfare. So if you
Okay.
were in submarines, that would be submarine warfare. If you're an aviator, aviation, it's aviation warfare, depending on
Okay.
what you're doing.
Okay.
So yeah, it was I was one of the first classes after you get to pick your like service select what you want to do, and it's changed a little bit in the few years that we won't put numbers to anymore, since my time there. But
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
you got to go pick, and so there's a big board, and it was based on your class rank, and then you got to go pick, and whatever ships were left, and whatever positions were left based on your medical. You had to have medical, um, you know, be
Sure.
medically qualified or whatever.
Right.
And
Right. Okay.
but as I looked at all of the different opportunities that were in front of me, I picked the ship. And after we graduated, they changed the law allowing women to go to combatants. And so they came to all of us women and said, do you want to shift to a combatant? And I thought long and hard about it, because it was like, well, they're like the cool, sexy ships. Like an ammunition ship's like, the grocery store, right? Like we're the Costco, right? And
Mm.
or the Sam's Club, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
we're carrying all the stuff. But
Yeah.
I thought about it, and I decided not to make the shift. One, because I'd already started making plans and had roommates figured out for where we were going to be stationed and everything else, and I just didn't want to upset that. But also, I was like, you know, I just did the 4 years, and yay, go me and push hard. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I just want to go learn how to be a good junior officer.
Yeah.
And if I mean, maybe it was a cop out, but I was like, I just want to learn how to be a good junior officer. And if I go fight that battle as the first female, then every mistake I make is going to be, she's a female officer. It's because she's a
Magnified and just
female,
the
and
spotlight.
not she's just an ensign learning how to do her job. And I
Right.
was like, "Ah, I just don't, I don't need that. And I
Fair
also,
enough.
I knew that my goal was to get qualified and then switch to the oceanography community. So I was
Yeah.
like, why create more drama? And
I got you.
I didn't want it. So I didn't
You
do
know
it.
what? I think that's very intuitive. You know, that to do that. I mean, to me, there's a lesson in that. I see a lesson in that. That's so cool. So did you meet your husband in the service, and did you get to get kind of that thing? Would you
Yeah.
tell us just a little bit about that, if you don't mind?
Sure. We were actually both midshipmen at the Naval Academy.
Okay.
And we had met, and um, we ended up dating like the beginning of my senior year.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
we dated. He had done a year of prep school. So we had graduated high school the same year, but he did a year of prep school based on, appointments and everything else. And so I graduated the year ahead of him.
Okay.
And we dated, and then I went off to Newport to do all of my Navy schools and training and whatever. And then I was there forever in all of these schools, and then he ended up following, and I left, and a week later he got to Newport. So pretty much the 3.5 years that we dated, we were not living in the same state.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and but we knew that we wanted to, we had recognized that this was actually a relation, like a real relationship, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was worth putting the time in. And this was before email. And so we would write letters back and forth to each other. And
Cool.
at first, it was like, oh yeah, nothing's really going on. I miss you, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we recognized, no, it was like the silly little things that, normally, like you dropped, Granny's plate and broke Granny's plate. Like that's something you would share with somebody. Some jerk cut you off at the gas station, you'd call home and be, oh my gosh, I can't believe, blah, 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 whatever, right? And so we recognized that we needed to share those silly little stories with each other,
Yeah.
because that was really seeing what was happening in our day-to-day life, not just,
Right.
well, I'm out at sea. I was the first one to do a deployment, and I was out at sea, and
Yeah.
and then he ended up, deployed. I came back, and then a little while later he was deployed.
Yeah.
But we shared and would number the letters, because you didn't always get mail call when you were out floating for 35 days or in a row not coming
Gosh.
in. And if the helicopter didn't come on board with mail, then you
Yeah.
didn't have any mail. And then you might get mail that had 5 letters, and it was so that we always had a number on the outside, so we knew how to
Yeah.
read the letters.
Yeah.
um and
Wow.
I think that really gave us a really strong foundation,
Yeah. That's
um
cool. That's really cool.
because you got to see the little things and the not so important things, but still those day-to-day things that were
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
enough to share. So yeah,
Now, was it high school that you were talking about, like when you were a senior, or was this in the Naval Academy?
at the academy.
Okay. Okay.
So that would have been my senior year in college. So
Okay. Okay. I
my
got you.
first year, it's called for your firstie when you're a senior at the academy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So
Cool. That's
mhm.
neat. That's neat. Guy, you know what? You're a neat person. I just
Thanks.
yeah, man. I just love this go-getter attitude. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you don't let things get in your way, but you're not a jerk about it, you know? And
Yeah.
and I love that. I love that. So
Thank you.
yeah, tell us tell us what's next. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
yeah, what do you want to tell us next? I'm
Yeah.
just yeah,
So, I started telling you I got really stuck with the empty nesting thing,
yeah,
and
right, right,
really stuck. And I thought that going back into education and having my students, and I love doing curriculum and design, like designing, um, interesting classes and whatnot. And I thought that was going to kind of fill that hole. So to prepare me as my girls were moving out of the house and headed off to
yeah,
school,
yeah,
my husband was traveling all the time with work, between he was at that point he was in the reserves and with a civilian job. And
okay,
I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to go do. And it just wasn't the right fit this time. And between that and then, life and age and everything else, kind of all the hormones and all of it kind of came together in this
right,
perfect storm. And I
sure,
just, I would be on, nobody could tell. I was on, I would never go into school or go
yeah,
into a classroom and not be on and be that positive light
right,
for those
yeah,
kids, because
yeah,
those
yeah,
kids, some of them have such horrible things going on. This was the
yeah,
positive part of their day, right?
right, I got
And
you.
so I was on show all day, and I would come home
Yeah.
and literally collapse into a
Oh,
chair,
wow.
and I just couldn't really do anything more than that. And I would escape into reading, my fantasy or romantasy books, and just I I I remember we were talking one night, what are we having for dinner? And I just started crying, because that was just I couldn't answer the question. Right? I
Wow,
couldn't answer the
wow,
question, because I couldn't answer any questions, because it
Yeah.
was, what am I going to do now? What do I need to be happy? Who am I? What do I want to do when I grow up? All those like big
Yes.
kind of like
Yeah.
spinning, buffering, like I call it like the rainbow, like circle. Like I was just like stuck
Right.
in buffer mode.
Yep.
And then, it would be these little decisions that just would totally like, I just lose
Get
it.
you off track.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so, I worked through a lot of things and did a lot of personal development during that
Sure.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um and from all of that, I took a $17 masterclass in real estate investing. And
Awesome.
that was huge because I was like, well, I know what they're talking about. I helped with all of this stuff. I'm like, and
Yeah.
we already had some properties, and I was like, all right. And
Yeah.
and so that taking that class and then going to a conference kind of helped me flip that switch, because it
Okay.
was something that I wanted to take action on, and
Yeah.
that had a little spark. Is that my end all be all ultimate goal of my life? No, but it was enough that I was ready to take action on a daily basis
Yeah.
and do something every day. And the more action I took, the more clarity I got in those questions that I was buffering on. And it
Right.
started providing more clarity as to what I wanted,
Right. Right.
and being
Right.
able to answer, what do I want?
Right.
Because so many of us, as we, get into this empty nesting stage, part of our lives,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
dreams, everything has been geared towards our kids, and most of us wouldn't change that. We'd still do it again, right?
Right. Yeah.
But 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 we stopped answering some of those questions. What are your dreams? What do you want? How do you want your life or your day to look? And we stopped
Yeah.
doing that because we've been so focused on these other things, and we get complacent, right? Hey, we figured out how to pay for college. The car's paid off. I live in a nice house. Hey, I live a couple miles from the beach here in Florida. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a
I've
good
got it
life.
all. What next? Right.
It's a good life. But I
Yeah.
realized that I wasn't satisfied with that. And so
Yeah.
in my coming out of being stuck, I also recognize I don't want just good. I want adventurous. I want passionate. I want joyous. I want great, amazing life.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been the nest evolution
Yeah.
of, learning how to go after these things. and
Sure.
and
Sure.
and because I couldn't find a group or a roadmap on how to do that,
Yeah.
I've put it together
You
so that
kind
I
of
can
made
help
your own.
others.
You
I
made your
made my
own.
own to help others who are feeling that lost, stuck, broken, whatever you want to call it, however you want to
Yeah.
describe that feeling.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing. So a little bit of real
Yeah.
estate over here, real
Yeah.
estate investing, and then really working on, the nest evolution, and being a bright spot for
Yeah.
a community, mainly focusing on the moms. Sorry, dads, but
Yeah.
mainly
Yeah.
focusing on
That's
the moms,
okay.
because, like 40% of women go through like an identity confusion, and
Sure.
like, identity vertigo is a great way of like describing it.
Okay.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
what is my new identity? I'm still a mom, but my description of mom has changed so drastically that there's just like this void. And
Right.
if we don't fill it with the right things, then, it's fear, and it's doubt, and it's
Yeah.
negative speak, and it's all those things that your three pillars are not talking about. It's
Right.
like the opposite of your three pillars, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need grit, you need hope, you need to not quit, because, um, you want your kids to see you go out and expand and not shrink.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, because just because we're empty nesters, it doesn't mean like, okay, put me in my rocking chair. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I live in
Yeah.
Naples, Florida. There's 85-year-olds that run circles around me all day long, because I'm in my 50s. Like I got there's a lot of runway here still. Like it's not time to
Yeah.
quit.
Heck
It's not
yeah.
retirement time. Well, maybe I don't want to do the corporate
Yeah.
job that we did or whatever, but like it's time to do the things that
Yeah.
are my purpose, or
Yeah.
whatever. So Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. I'm with you. That's awesome. Did you ever do any counseling, or did you go see, like a psychiatrist, psychologist, any of that to kind of help you through some of that, or was it mainly like self personal development?
Mostly self personal development. I did uh, a lot of, like the Tony Robbins, a lot
Yep.
of
Sure.
Marshall Silver.
Yep.
There's a lot of great. Um, I'm a big fan of mentors and
Yes.
finding mentors in areas,
Yep.
like, hey, let's double your portfolio. Hey, let's triple your portfolio. Hey,
Yep.
hey, they've already learned the hard lessons. Let me work with a mentor to get me there
That's
faster
right.
or easier. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're not going to have road bumps and
Exactly.
lessons learned, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think a lot of that was really, um, it was the path that I needed to go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got to go on a retreat, and that was really huge, in helping me just accept where I was at, because I
Cool.
was in a kind of denial of where I was at and didn't really want to turn and look in at how, because I didn't understand why I was so lost or why I
Right.
felt so that way.
Yeah.
And so going
Yeah.
on that retreat and being able to like ground into, the nature there, and, the beauty of just a few people enjoying and kind of having that time to be still,
Sure.
because we
Sure.
really don't do that enough, I think.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
having that time to be still was so transformative for me, because I was able to look myself in the mirror and admit that I was not in the right place,
Yeah.
and go,
Yeah.
okay, but now I know where I'm at. So
Yeah.
now I know where I'm starting so that I can navigate forward from there.
That's awesome.
And so I think that that was really helpful. I was fortunate I had supportive family, but at the same time, that was a double-edged sword in many ways, which is another reason for the community, because um, I'd mention anything positive, anything that I was like, oh, this sounds interesting, and immediately I had cheerleaders, and that just made me feel like there was so much pressure, because I was like, I don't know.
Oh,
Like, I just
that's a
looked
good
at it and I was
point.
like, oh, that's interesting. But then I felt too much pressure. And so
Right.
then I was like,
Okay.
no, no, I don't know, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so, as I, like with the real estate thing, when I kind of jumped into that, I didn't share that with it. My husband knew, obviously, but I didn't really share it. And I live next door to my parents and my sister.
Oh, okay.
We have a family compound, sort of. So,
Wow. Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
during COVID, I bought the house next to my sister, and whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, but
Nice.
um, but so not sharing was, can be hard because they're right next door. But at the same time, I needed to just go explore.
Yeah.
And I just needed it to be only what was going on here, and not have anybody else's thoughts or opinions
Right.
um, on what I
Yeah.
was doing. And
Yeah.
and all they wanted was, I mean, I know it was from love. All they wanted was
Yeah.
to lift me up and support me.
Sure.
But that at that point where I was, it was just too much pressure.
You
And
know,
so,
that is a very interesting point and perspective that I don't think a lot of people have or get or even see, because most of the time they're kind of jealous, or they want to tear you down, and they act like they're rooting for you, but they're really not, because they're jealous because they don't have the courage to do it, or the skills to do it, or whatever, right?
right.
And I've learned and I've read, what? The people that really are successful are the ones, they just don't talk about it. They just go do it. And their actions just speak. And
Yeah.
because I believe the more that I read and learn, the more I learn about energy and frequency and your aura and these things. And it's like, when you meet somebody, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
I just like them. There's something about them. I just like them.
Yeah.
Or they're like, something's a little off, dodgy here. I don't know what it is, but it's that sense and it's that energy and it's that
Yeah.
aura. And, that'll wear off on you when you tell somebody, I'm going for my dream. And they may be like, oh, great, good for you, happy for you. But really, they're not cheering for you. And, and I don't mean that personally about your family.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying in general, everybody, when I started a kettle corn manufacturing business in New Zealand, my friends, like about 10 years later, all got together and told me, they were like, we were planning to have an intervention with you. Like, we thought you had lost your mind, that you
Yeah.
were partnering with this guy that you didn't know, and
Right.
he was going to steal all your money, and you just had gone off the deep end.
Yeah.
And I grew. Me and my business partner grew the business from going out to the local markets on the weekend to the second largest manufacturing company of popcorn in New Zealand, shipping all
Wow.
over Australasia. And so
Wow.
after that, right, everybody was like, oh, we knew you could do it. Oh, we knew the whole time. and
Right.
and right,
Right.
and then they,
You're like, sure.
it's just like, yeah, they want to go on all the vacations, but they weren't there when I was staying up all night, when I was
Right.
working during Christmas, when they're sitting on their ass on the beach,
Right.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I really like that intuitive kind of flip that you put in about the pressure, because I think some people, they're feeling it, but they don't know what that is, and you named it, and you brought it to their attention. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind,
Sure.
let me ask you a little bit, like, okay, so the picture is, right, the husband, he's out of town working and doing his thing, and the girls are going off to college. And what can you just kind of go back, if you don't mind, and tell us a little bit, like, kind of some of the feelings, or maybe kind of what you start to notice, to share with people, to kind of go like, hey, if you're feeling like this,
Mhm.
maybe this is kind of where you're at,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. So hindsight, is really amazing.
Yeah.
I think for me, now that I've, looked back and kind of scrutinized, when my girls started driving and I was retired as the mommy chauffeur, right? So in the afternoons, I used to
Oh,
drive from like 3 until 9 or whatever to all the activities and
okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
So at that point, my relationship with my girls started to shift, right? Because they were becoming more independent. They were
Right.
still at home. And COVID was a blessing for me because they were juniors and seniors in high school. So I got a few extra months where they didn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
things that we got to have, family time.
Yeah.
But as they started driving and becoming more independent, and not having that, whether it's joyous or forced time together in the car, that
Yeah.
you have those conversations, right? Like, what's going on. The kid gets in the car, they're upset, something's going on, and eventually
Right.
they're going to come out and tell you what's going on,
Right.
if you play it smooth and you play it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that really was the first point that I really started to feel things, because I
Okay.
felt the shift in the relationship. I felt
With the
um
girls? With the girls, you
with
mean?
the girls, and
Yeah, with
not
the girls.
not really bad, like,
Right,
they're
right.
they're out conquering the world. They're
Yeah.
not shy, bashful wallflower kids. They grew up with me, so they're out there and doing their thing and going for things. but
Yeah.
um but that was a time, because I started feeling like, oh, well, I have more time. Oh, okay, I can help a little bit more with the job that I had, and do a little bit more there. And
Yeah.
so I kind of increased that
Okay.
time. What I
Right.
really should have started doing was increasing, because I knew that wasn't necessarily what my end all be all job at that point. I
Okay.
should have
Right.
started thinking more like, well, what are my dreams? Well, what do I want to do? What
Right.
do I want as they move out? And I didn't do that. And
Yeah.
COVID, I think, played a role in there for me as well, because I was just
Okay.
so happy everybody was home.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
However, I think that's kind of the first thing. Um,
Okay.
and then, at first sitting there on a mountain in Tennessee, and the house is empty, and I'm just like, talking to the dogs, and I just didn't really know what to do. And then I was like, well,
Right.
I don't know. I don't really feel like getting dressed. I don't really want to go out. And,
Right.
and part of your social circle starts to change,
Yeah.
because if your kids and your social circle is geared with the parents of your kids, like
Yeah.
the parents of your kids' friends,
Yeah.
then that shifts, because either they have other kids now that they're doing things with and with those parents, or
Right.
their kids are maybe gone to college. So now they're going on weekends to their kids' college events or activities, if they're in
Gotcha.
sports or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that starts happening.
Yeah.
And so again, it comes back. I remember sitting and doing an exercise, and I had like 10 minutes, and write down your dreams. What do you want? What are, and just all kinds of things, whatever it is, all the things that you want, not
Yeah.
what you need, what do you want? And just dream big, and where do you want to go, and who do you want to meet? And like all of those types of questions,
Yeah.
other than going to Antarctica, which is top of my bucket list.
Oh, cool.
It
Okay.
was the only thing really on my bucket list at that time. There was
Yeah.
nothing else.
Okay.
I didn't
Kind
have
of done it
anything
all.
else.
You done it all, right?
Right, things were good.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel
And
lost,
so,
man.
like,
You
feeling
just feel lost.
complacent, I
Yeah.
think that's something where you need to go, oh, wait a minute, we're complacent. And
Yeah.
and especially as your kids are leaving the house, if you're feeling complacent, then you need to start like working on things.
Yeah.
And and then of course when I got a little further along, and it was like the education, the teaching thing wasn't going anywhere, being the dean wasn't going anywhere, and I was just like, nope, I just don't even, I'm over it. And
Right.
that for me, then I would come home and just escape, and I knew I was escaping,
Okay.
because going into my books or into watching, like binging whatever, Netflix and I became buddies, and I just binged something, because it stopped, again, the buffering, it stopped the
Right.
overanalysis,
The
it
washing
stopped
machine.
the
Yeah.
the constant, what am I doing? And like, I was a list girl, make a list, line it up, knock it down, move on, make the
Gotcha.
list, line it up, knock it
Yep.
down.
I'm with you.
And I couldn't list my way out of this,
Right.
right? Like
Interesting. Yeah.
I couldn't I couldn't even write down, like, the things that I would have written down is, what do you want to do? What do you want to be?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to try? I don't know. If
Nothing.
I knew that, I wouldn't, right? If I knew that, I wouldn't be sitting here. And
Right.
so I think those are like key kind of little, like, uh, you know,
Indicators.
indicators to say,
Yeah.
hey, if
Yeah.
you're feeling these things, this is, you need to start working on a few things for you.
Yeah.
Answer, like, or if you're asking all those questions, you
Yeah.
have to stop at some point and answer one of the questions.
And you know what? It's okay to do that. It's okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay, right? It's okay to not have all the answers and know
Yes.
exactly what you did, because you did for 40 something whatever years, right? You
Right.
always had the answer. You always had the path. You had the next step planned as you were finishing, you were closing this chapter and opening this one. And then
That's
all of a
right.
sudden you closed the chapter, but you didn't have enough one to open. And you're like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
yeah, right? It's like
Completely.
I got a clean slate here and I'm not sure what to write.
No, that's exactly right. And
Yeah.
and so that's where, you know, I, I know I'm speaking from a woman's perspective here. We
That's
tend to
fine. It's all
overanalyze,
good.
right? We tend to hyperfixate on things, and we just go over it and over it and over it and over it and over it. And the biggest thing I can say is, make a decision on something. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's taking a walk every day. May, maybe it is joining a group for, or a club for something that you've always had interest in. Maybe it's going and taking a class on how to start a business, if that's something you want to do. But
Sure.
but recognize that, try it.
Yeah.
Go do whatever that is for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know we tell our kids don't do this because no, you can't try every single instrument that's out there. But 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 it's
Right.
okay. You can, because the point is getting the momentum and taking the action,
Yeah.
because that again is what's going to bring you to clarity on, hey, okay, well, you know what? I know I don't want to go be a master gardener. I don't like getting my hands dirty. I'm allergic to everything that grows. I don't like bugs. Like,
Yeah.
okay, great. You check that off your list. But go,
That's
maybe
right.
you met some great people while you were there, or
Yeah.
what's the next thing?
Yeah.
And so I think that it, again, it doesn't have to be your final decision. It
Right.
just needs to be a decision to go try this next thing, do this next thing.
I,
And
I
I
am
think that's really important.
I'm so with you. I mean, really, like making a decision and doing something is better than not making a decision, which is actually making a
Making a decision.
decision to do nothing. And you know what? I learned that with my business partner. It was like, you know what? Hey, we just got to make a step. And
Yeah.
there's usually very few things that you do where you can't back out of it a bit, right?
Or change your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, hey, I tried that. You kind of got one foot in and one foot out. It's like I'm just dipping my toe in and testing this out. And you know
Right.
what? I don't like it. And I think sometimes for me, I don't know what I want. So I've got my 4 or 5 things, and it becomes a process of elimination. And that will narrow it down. And you know what?
Right.
That's a long way to go about it. But you know what? If it works,
It works.
it
That's
works.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. I say, like, set a timer. So
Good,
one
good
of the
idea.
one of the things I've struggled with, and one of my challenges was meal prep, and like, what are we going to have for dinner? And
Okay.
again, like, crying over the dinner thing. But
Sure.
but now it's like, okay, great. Like, I don't know. And with AI, it's great because you can like take a picture of your fridge and shove it in AI, and it'll say, oh, here, you can make this, this, and this with those ingredients that I see in your refrigerator. Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you don't want to go that far, or you're not ready for that step, set a timer, 5 minutes, stand in your fridge, fine, if that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
That timer goes off, whatever, that's what you're having for dinner. Okay.
Sure.
You know what? It's chicken nuggets and a salad, but okay, that's what we're having. We're having chicken nuggets and a salad because boom, I have a bag of salad and I can throw the chicken nuggets in the air fryer and we're
Yep.
moving on.
Yep.
Because, the pressure that we feel from not making the decision, which is, like we just said, is a decision,
Yeah.
that pressure, I think, is even worse.
I concur.
Um,
I fully concur. Yeah.
and it just stacks and stacks and
Oh yeah.
stacks. So when you can't make the bigger decisions or decide what you're doing for, what am I going to do when I grow up?
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I going to be?
Yeah.
Then fine, take that pressure of, oh yeah, no, I can't do that thing, or
Yeah.
yeah, this is what's for dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
You know, um, it's one of the really older guys that used to do the like the self-help stuff. Oh, I
mhm.
can't remember his name right now, but his thing, if you said it, I would remember it. Oh, it's escaping me right now. But his thing was, you know what? There's an answer to everything. If you go out to your favorite spot, no music, no distractions, no phones, nobody, and you sit in your favorite little place in the park or in the woods or wherever, and it's quiet, it will come to you. And that's what I had to do several times in a row, because I had this business in New Zealand, and then I
Right.
got cancer and all that happened, and then I had to sell the business. I beat the cancer, and what am I going to do? And I was spinning, and
Yeah.
fortunately, with how the things worked out when I moved back, it was with my parents because I was terminal at the time, and we beat everything, and it was like I was lost, and my
Yeah.
dad said, "Hey, you're having a midlife crisis." I'm like, after all this,
Right.
you know, and he's like, yeah. Remember when I went through mine? he left the family for a year. He had to
Yeah.
go check himself out. And he said, you got to go out by yourself and think about it. And you know what I loved? I loved I had it, production workers, assembly line work is transient.
Right.
They're just, they get mad and they leave and they go around and they come back and I had
Right.
hundreds and hundreds of staff. But the 4 or 5 that came back, right? And like said, hey, boss, look, I'm married. Look, I got a wife. I got a baby. I got a car. You took a chance with me when I was a kid. And look at me now. And thank you for that. I did that crap for 14 years for those 4 or 5 thank yous. And you know what? I figured out that's what I love. I am hanging out for somebody. My currency is a genuine thank you.
Yeah.
And being a cancer coach is kind of like, that's what I knew. That's what
Right.
I know. And that's what I know damn good, man. And I work with a lot of people and I love it. And it's
Yeah.
hard and man, it's intense and it's sad sometimes. But there's nothing like for me getting a chance to change somebody's day, to change their life,
Right.
and get a thank you, and you're doing the same thing in a different way, and it's beautiful, isn't it? Isn't it just wonderful?
It's yeah, it's like it's serving others, right? So between the military, being an educator, being a coach for swimming, training people, like it's serving others.
Yeah,
And now I am, serving women who need a little help in kind of figuring out that next step.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it is amazing. And um, you know, helping someone, it's like when you teach and all of a sudden you see the spark or the twinkle in the eye
yeah,
because you just introduced somebody to something that they're passionate about or something that they love, and you're just like, "Ding," and you
oh
just see it,
man,
and then you see that
yeah,
excitement and that enthusiasm, and then they come back the next day, and I think that that's what it's all about, right? It's
yeah,
helping them find that success or that positive
yeah.
thing. Um,
You know,
so
people say on your deathbed. This is my best friend right here. This is
right,
Zadie. This is my
super
best friend
cute.
Zadie right here.
Mine
So
are upstairs. They're locking away, hiding away because they're really loud and noisy. So and
she
slobbery.
she literally is my ESA. Like
Yeah.
she is my emotional support animal. This is my
Yeah.
best friend on the planet, and I just love my girl to death. We are just best buds. But God, you're so right. It fills my heart with joy to just you know that like I believe I had less than a 5% chance to beat pancreatic
Wow.
cancer.
Yeah.
And I had 2 pulmonary embolisms. The hip cancer was the first thing. It left me handicapped. I've been on crutches. I've had 2 chronic hip infections. I'm not
Wow.
supposed to be here, okay? But I'm here because God and I decided
This
that
is why you're here. Yeah.
plans. I still have things to do,
That's right.
and I'm working with the guy, man. And you know what? I don't think everybody else was scared to take a chance with him. But you know what? He wants it. He's got the right attitude. And you know what? I'm getting that foxhole with him, man. And we will fight
Yeah.
our way out. And you know what? 80% of it's right here, you
Oh,
know?
at least. At
And
least.
yeah, man. And hey, we have some up and down days, and we are a team. And my analogy is a football game. I try to live my life like that's my favorite game. And when I was going through everything with the cancer and stuff, it
Hmm.
was so heavy. Like going in, talking to these doctors, like, you're going to be dead in a year. You need to
Yeah.
accept this. You're in denial. Go home and be with your parents. Sell your business. No, you just get out of this country. And I turned it into a football game. In my mind, it's like, you know what? I'm going to be the quarterback of my life, and
Yes.
you can give me some advice. I'm going to take it on board, but I'm making the final call here. Me and God are going to decide what
Yep.
I'm doing. And for a couple of years, I let these guys tell me what my life was going to be. And you know what?
Yeah.
They told me my life was going to be dead.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. And, I think that's what you're doing too. You're
Yeah.
saying, hey, you can take control here. You're the quarterback. You're going to call some bad plays. You're going to get sacked a few times, okay? But it's all right. Call a timeout. Go talk to your mentor. Go talk
That's
to your
right.
coach, and figure it out. And hey, get back in the game, right?
That's right. Yep. Call
You
that
know,
audible and make it happen,
yeah,
right? I mean,
that's it.
and yeah, I mean, and that's, the service that we provide is giving moms a roadmap
Yeah,
and giving them guidance and a community to come together to start making some of those decisions with other women that are going through it. Because
yeah,
a lot of times, like, our friends aren't going through it, right? They have younger kids, they never had kids,
yeah,
or their kids got to that age and moved out, and they were like, "Woo, vacation, see you later," and like they shut the door as fast as they could, and I mean they love their kids, but still
right.
they
Yeah,
moved into party mode,
sure.
and and I thought that was gonna kinda be me, like, "Woohoo, see you later."
Yeah,
And in a lot of ways it was, "Woohoo, see you later." But
yeah,
then when I got home, it was, "Woo," and, it wasn't the same, and
right.
so I think that's, why it's so important, um, in helping people and being that mentor or
Yeah,
being that coach to help, talk them through it and
yeah,
give
yeah,
them activities or exercises that helps
sure.
them build momentum so that they can move forward,
Let
right?
me
It's
so
not
let me
something you
ask
do
you an obvious
forever.
question, okay?
Yeah.
That's probably got kind of an obvious answer, but like, tell us kind of your target market. Like, who do you work with? Kind of, is there an age bracket or a industry? Or tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about that, because if
Sure.
people are listening and they're like, "Hey, that's kind of me," well, guys, go talk to Kelly. You
Yeah,
know?
love to have you.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so my target market is really an empty nesting mom.
yeah.
Um, m- you know,
Mainly females. Do you work with men at all? Not do you
I
not
mainly have been working with females. I think
great.
at some point I may do stuff, but right now it was really a
Cool.
community of moms.
Cool.
As we kind of
Awesome.
move into that wise woman age and stage
Cool.
where, the hormones shift and we decide, okay, I need to focus on me and
Fair enough.
recognize that
Yeah.
I got to do me now and figure out
Yeah.
what me is.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. Sure.
but a lot of it is, 45 to 60 kind of is that range. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that there aren't older people, older
Right.
moms, just
Right.
because depending on how many kids they had when they had kids, a lot of people are waiting to have kids.
Yeah.
Um, but that's really kind of been the focus and the
Sure.
area that I've really focused on. But
Yeah.
I've had women that I've talked with and due to a ugly divorce situation, they became empty
Sure.
nesters when their kids were like 13.
Right.
And
Yep. Yep.
and so that's been helpful in talking
Sure.
with them.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so I think it really is, and anyone who has seen that kind of getting stuck, getting
Yep.
lost, getting
Yep.
getting surprised by the fact
Yep.
that their kids have left the house and just really not
Yeah.
functioning on the outside and
Yep.
smiling on the outside, but like inside you are just not emotionally and mentally really engaging. That functional
Yep.
freeze
Yep.
or just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah. It sounds like you just feel a bit empty. You know.
Yeah.
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 Um, do you do one-on-one coaching, or is it more group stuff, or do you do kind of some webinars, and tell us a little bit about all that stuff?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple of master classes coming up, which are free for
Cool.
anybody to kind of jump in and
Yeah.
and check it out.
Tell us
Uh,
when those are, and can you give
sure.
us some dates and times and stuff? And
Yeah, I have one
yeah,
coming up. in a week.
Cool.
So next week, actually, next Wednesday. So, you know, you can go to the website and get registered right there at
Okay.
thenestevolution.com.
Okay.
And then we'll grow from there. In the community, we do monthly group session,
Okay.
usually about 45 minutes for coaching, teaching lesson of
Yeah.
some sort, and then Q&A. There's I'll call it a workbook, but you know, education, we kind of ruined the name workbook, but there's a workbook that you get with interactive opportunities or activities to kind of help you
Cool.
evaluate or think about where you're at, or
Yeah.
be ready for the next thing that we're going to cover the following
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of an action plan to help you through each month.
Cool.
Um,
Cool.
we have that going on, mostly group coaching.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and uh, the next thing will be having retreats.
Yeah. Good
Which
for
will be
you.
for smaller number of people. So, you
Yeah.
know, it'll be fewer, but, you know, giving people that opportunity to, like I said, that was really transformative for me and
Yeah.
going out. So that's something that I'm working towards right now, is getting
Cool.
retreats up and going,
Cool.
so that we can have that quiet space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are, you know, that's really what it is right now, is just working
Yeah.
on growing that community,
Good for you.
and providing, and then the other is
Do
bringing
you do
in
you
guests.
do you have any coaches that you kind of group up with and you guys work together? Or are you mainly just kind of still doing it on your own?
Right now it's me, but I've been compiling a list of, you know, doing it monthly, but then I want to bring in kind of a bonus
Yeah.
guest every month who
Cool.
can
Yeah.
talk about things that are, you know, I'm not a therapist.
Right. 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 Yep.
So they can like bring in a relationship therapist, because
Yep.
67% of relationships struggle in the empty nesting phase.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, you know, some good, some bad, but
Yeah. Yep.
bringing in someone to talk, because many of us have waited to have kids, so we're hitting this phase also while dealing with all kinds of hormone changes, body changes, and life
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
Um, Bringing in someone to talk about finances in like your 50s and 60s, and
Cool.
what are
I love
things.
it. Love.
So, you know, providing other areas, and experts who,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
really can help serve the community.
Yeah.
You know,
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. We're coming up on about an hour,
yeah.
and is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to cover? Is there any website? I know you've written a book. You know, if you want to
Hmm.
tell us about anything that you
Sure.
want to share, tell us about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The community's open, and you can go to thenestevolution.com/join,
Okay.
and join the community. We're still, bringing in charter members right now. Once
Cool.
we get above a certain number, we'll shift that price. But we'd
Yeah.
love to have people jump in there.
Cool.
Um, the book, I wrote a book. It was, part of it was just a challenge to see if I could do it, because
Yeah.
struggled to even I struggled, past tense, right? To
Love it. Yes.
to even write posts like, so sorry for your loss, and then I'd go and check, is that what I'm supposed to say? Yeah, okay, everybody else said that, so okay, happy birthday. Okay, do I have a comma or do I not have a comma? Like, that would stress me out, so then I just wouldn't
Yeah.
post anything, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
one of
Okay.
my challenges to myself was to see if I could write. And so I co-authored a book, You
That's
Can
awesome.
Overcome Anything When You Refuse to Give Up. And it shares my story of remembering my strength, and, you know, my empty nest
Yeah.
evolution.
That's
And,
awesome.
you know, kind of share some of the mindset changes I had to go through as I, you know, look back, like getting into the academy and recognizing,
Right.
holy cow, I was a teenager and look how strong and how determined, and how I did not let anything get in my way, and there's always
Yeah.
a third door, there's always another option, and I found that. And if a teenage me can do that, well, 50 something me can also do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I have more wisdom and more life experience, and
Absolutely.
so, that I share that story, And that's thenestevolution.com/book. Try to keep it
Cool.
all in the same place, but really, I just love to have women that are interested in connecting
Yeah.
and jump in there so that we can communicate and
Yeah.
share as we continue to launch more things
Yeah.
and move into the retreats and but right now it's just focusing on the monthly group coaching with
Cool.
folks.
Cool.
Yeah.
When we wind down here in a minute,
Hmm.
stick around because I know some ladies in Florida, and
Awesome.
they're in the Tampa area, and
Great.
and yeah, we'll talk for a minute and afterwards and about connecting you with them, and I think it'd be
Great.
great. It's the group that I wrote my collaborative chapters in.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
there seems to be some like some collaborative and cohesion and alignment there. So
Yeah.
hey, I mean, I think it's been a great show. Like you're so open and easy to talk to, and you're a great coach, and you're gonna be awesome. I
Oh,
really,
thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. And hey, you're already there, right? You're already there. Um, is there anything else? If there isn't, yeah, you've got the final word, and then I'll take us out.
Yeah, no, I think that the big thing is, take some action every day.
Love it.
Even if it's messy, it definitely doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep.
And and remember that you have so much strength and power inside you. And you just need to look within yourself and recognize moments where you've been really strong or had grit or determination or whatever that is that you need in this moment, and know that
Yep.
you already have done it, and
Yep.
just call on it again, dust it off a little bit and bring it
Yeah.
forward and go out. And I'd love to see y'all in the empty nest
Yeah. Yeah.
community.
Please.
Join the Nest Evolution, and we'll design your next chapter of your life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Kelly, I consider you part of the Conquerors crew. I just think you've conquered so much. And yeah, it's been awesome to have you on the show.
Thank
So
you. I've loved it.
yeah, guys, we're out of here. So God bless, Godspeed to you all, and never forget that grit don't quit. We're